10 days ago, a shocking revelation came to light. My wife of 6 years was captured on camera at a friend's bachelorette party, engaging with 2 male dancers. This clandestine recording, taken by another woman at the event using her cell phone, remained concealed until recently. The woman who recorded the footage confided in her boyfriend, who, coincidentally, knows me through our shared acquaintances from high school. While we've never been close, our paths have crossed due to mutual connections. This video lay dormant for years until the couple's breakup, after which the ex-boyfriend began casually sharing it with friends as an amusing anecdote. It became a staple topic at gatherings and guys' nights out, much to the amusement of those privy to it. Many of the women featured in the video were in relationships at the time, leading to speculation that they may have been mocking their partners, including myself. However, the story remained unknown to me and my close friends until about a month ago when one of our mutual acquaintances learned of it during a casual conversation. The revelation shook him, and he grappled with the decision to share it with me considering my seemingly happy marriage and the bond we shared. He understood the depth of affection between my wife and me, particularly as parents to our young daughters, aged 3 and 5. 11 days ago, he reached out to me, indicating the urgency of our discussion. Despite my initial assumption that he sought advice on personal matters, his demeanor at the bar where we met suggested otherwise. Standing at 6'3", with a past marked by brushes with the law related to my past affiliations, I projected an air of toughness among my peers, despite leaving that life behind me. As we sat down, his apprehensive expression hinted that the conversation would revolve around me rather than himself. Despite the tough exterior I displayed, I couldn't shake off the sense of foreboding that enveloped the discussion. For me to meet with his friend who had the video, but he warned me to be cautious about how I approached the situation, especially considering my past tendencies towards aggression. As we talked, I grappled with a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, confusion, and embarrassment surged within me. Despite my initial disbelief, deep down, I knew there was truth to the matter. I vividly recalled the time when my wife mentioned attending a friend's bachelorette party 5 years ago, a memory now clouded with suspicion. In the past, my reaction might have been volatile, driven by a desire to defend my wife's honor and confront those involved. However, the transformative experiences of prison, marriage, and parenthood had instilled a newfound sense of composure and maturity within me. I recognized the need to handle the situation with caution and restraint, especially given my history of volatility. As I sat at the bar contemplating the gravity of the situation, I realized that my friend wouldn't bring me here merely to play a cruel joke. Despite my skepticism about his involvement, I trusted his intentions to some extent. I asked him for details on how to contact the individual with the video, knowing that approaching the situation delicately was paramount. Despite the turmoil raging within me, I knew I needed to approach the situation methodically. I couldn't allow my emotions to cloud my judgment. With a deep breath, I resolved to confront this unsettling revelation head-on, but with the newfound restraint and maturity that defined the person I had become. Rushing back, hitting me like a tidal wave. I felt a mix of emotions, anger, betrayal, and disbelief. Yet, as I looked at her, I saw the woman I loved, the mother of our children, and the partner I had shared my life with for 6 years. How could I confront her with such damning accusations? Despite the turmoil raging within me, I knew I had to tread carefully. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, trying to process the events of the previous night and the implications they held for our marriage. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts before speaking. Sitting there on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, I struggled to find the right words. My wife's concern was palpable, her eyes searching mine for answers. I knew I couldn't keep her in the dark, yet the weight of the truth felt suffocating. Finally, I mustered the courage to speak, my voice heavy with emotion. I recounted the events of the previous night, the revelation from my friend, the video, and the unsettling truth it revealed about her past. Each word felt like a dagger piercing through the facade of our once perfect marriage. As I spoke, I watched her expression change from confusion to shock, then to a mix of guilt and remorse. It was clear she hadn't anticipated this confession, hadn't prepared for the reckoning that now stood before her. In that moment, I saw my wife's vulnerability, her humanity laid bare. Despite the gravity of the situation, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for her. She had made mistakes just as we all had, yet she now faced the consequences of those actions. We sat there in silence, the weight of our words hanging heavy in the air. In that moment, I realized that our marriage stood at a crossroads, teetering on the edge of uncertainty. Yet, amidst the turmoil, there remained a glimmer of hope, a flicker of the love that had once bound us together. As the morning sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the room with its warm glow, I knew that whatever lay ahead, we would face it together, as partners, as parents, and as two imperfect souls navigating the complexities of love and forgiveness. Asking my friend for the guy's phone number, we stepped outside the bar, where he made a call. Returning, he informed me the guy hadn't answered but had sent a text, promising updates. Initially, I wanted to leave immediately and confront my wife, but my friend advised restraint, suggesting I take time to process things. So, we stayed at the bar, discussing my relationship with my wife, which had been great up to that point. Contemplating the intricacies of our relationship, I've come to the realization that her involvement in such a situation was something I never anticipated. In the initial year of our courtship, subtle hints of a wild streak surfaced, yet the true extent eluded my awareness until now. While it appeared that she had bid farewell to her party phase, the lingering challenge of alcohol persisted, occasionally rearing its head. Despite this, she had made considerable strides in overcoming these struggles, particularly following the birth of our first daughter. The nuances of her journey with alcohol hinted at a complexity that I hadn't fully comprehended during the early stages of our relationship. In those initial years, the signs were there, subtle whispers of a penchant for the spontaneous and the unrestrained. However, my perception was clouded by the hopeful belief that these aspects were fleeting remnants of youth, ones that would naturally dissipate with the progression of time. The transformation she underwent after the birth of our first daughter was a testament to her resilience and determination. Motherhood appeared to serve as a catalyst for positive change, inspiring her to confront and conquer the challenges associated with alcohol. As a partner, witnessing this evolution was a source of encouragement and hope, a sign that our shared journey was marked by growth and maturation. Yet, the recent revelation has prompted a revisitation of these chapters in our shared history. It beckons me to reconsider the depth of these struggles, recognizing that the wild streak I observed early on may have been a precursor to a more intricate narrative. It forces me to grapple with the complexity of her relationship with alcohol, acknowledging that the shadows of the past continue to cast a presence in our present. As we navigate the complexities of our intertwined lives, I find myself reflecting on the delicate balance between acceptance and understanding. The evolving nature of our relationship demands a nuanced perspective, one that acknowledges the strides made while recognizing the challenges that persist. In doing so, we pave the way for a future marked by empathy, support, and an unwavering commitment to facing life's complexities together. While talking, my friend received a text from the guy, indicating he could share his number. I wasted no time calling him, arranging a meeting to obtain the video. However, the guy was out of town and wouldn't return until the following week. Expressing my eagerness for the video, I negotiated with him, eventually settling on $11,000 to obtain it. I found his request for money distasteful, but it allowed us to create a legal agreement preventing the video's release, ensuring I owned the sole copy. My primary concern was protecting my wife, daughters, and family from further embarrassment, considering the explicit nature of the video. That night, too intoxicated to drive, I took a lift home, leaving my car in the bar's parking lot. Upon arriving home, I stumbled through the door, barely coherent, collapsing on the couch. The next morning, hungover and disoriented, my wife, who had planned to work, stayed home, concerned about my behavior. Handing me a glass of water, she asked what was bothering me. Glancing at her, memories of the previous night flooded back. Though I wanted to confront her immediately, my inebriated state prevented it. Thus, I spent the morning grappling with the overwhelming truth, unsure of how to proceed. As I conversed with my friend at the bar, grappling with the bombshell revelation about my wife, I found solace in our history, which stretched back to high school. Our camaraderie had weathered many storms, built on mutual support and understanding. Despite the differences in our paths, my transition from a turbulent past to a stable present as a union electrician juxtaposed against his corporate trajectory, our bond remained steadfast. The weight of the situation pressed upon me, each word laden with implications for my marriage. My friend, sensing my turmoil, offered counsel tempered with wisdom accrued over years of shared experiences. His advice echoed in the dimly lit bar, urging caution and deliberation before confronting my wife. It was a moment of respite amidst the maelstrom of emotions threatening to engulf me. Reflecting on my relationship with my wife, I couldn't help but traverse the landscape of memories, each poignant moment now tinged with uncertainty. Our journey together, from the ebullient beginnings of young love to the serene anchorage of matrimony, felt surreal in light of the revelations. The contours of her character, once familiar and comforting, now seemed obscured by shadows of doubt. The image of her involvement with two dancers, captured in the clandestine confines of a baccalaureate party, shattered the illusions of intimacy and fidelity that I had cherished. Yet, amidst the chaos of conflicting emotions, a glimmer of hope emerged, the resilience of our love, tempered by the trials of parenthood and the sanctity of shared vows. In navigating the labyrinth of emotions, I found myself grappling with existential questions that transcended the confines of my marriage. Was our bond, woven from the fabric of trust and devotion, resilient enough to weather this storm? Or was it an ephemeral mirage, destined to dissipate amidst the harsh realities of human frailty? As I awaited the return of the acquaintance with the incriminating video, I braced myself for the impending reckoning, knowing that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges. Yet, amidst the uncertainty and tumult, one thing remained clear: the unwavering resolve to confront the truth, no matter the cost. Amidst the tense exchange with my wife, her attempts to deflect accountability only served to exacerbate my frustration. She clung to the refuge of excuses, blaming alcohol, downplaying the significance of our relationship at the time of the incident, and evading the gravity of her actions. Each evasion felt like a dagger to the heart, a betrayal of the trust we had painstakingly cultivated over the years. Despite my efforts to maintain composure, the barrage of justifications wore down my resolve, pushing me perilously close to the edge of anger. The urge to lash out, to confront her with the full force of my indignation, simmered beneath the surface, threatening to erupt into a tempest of fury. Yet, a semblance of restraint prevailed. I couldn't allow myself to succumb to the allure of violence, not when the sanctity of our home hung in the balance. With a heavy heart, I made the difficult decision to retreat from the confrontation, seeking refuge in the solace of a friend's abode. As I sought refuge in the tranquility of my colleague's home, a cacophony of emotions echoed within me. Anger, betrayal, and disillusionment waged a silent battle for dominance, each vying for recognition amidst the tumult of my thoughts. The realization that my marriage had become a mere shadow of its former self gnawed at my soul, leaving me adrift in a sea of uncertainty. In the ensuing days, as I grappled with the aftermath of the revelation, a profound sense of desolation settled over me. The once familiar contours of my life seemed distorted, marred by the specter of doubt and mistrust. Every facet of our relationship, once bathed in the warm glow of affection, now seemed tinged with deception. Despite the allure of escape, the responsibilities of fatherhood beckoned me back to the confines of my home. With a heavy heart and a mind burdened by the weight of unresolved conflicts, I returned to the semblance of normalcy, clinging to the hope that clarity would eventually emerge from the chaos. In moments of despair, I sought solace in the wisdom of my father, whose unwavering support had been a constant beacon of light in the darkest of times. Though our relationship had weathered its fair share of storms, his counsel remained a source of comfort, offering guidance amidst the tempest of uncertainty. Yet, even as I grappled with the turmoil within, the specter of impending deadlines loomed large, drawing me back into the relentless cycle of work and obligations. Amidst the ceaseless demands of daily life, the echo of unanswered questions lingered, a reminder of the tumultuous journey that lay ahead. As I've traversed the corridors of adulthood, the wisdom of my father has become a guiding beacon in the tempest of life's uncertainties. Recognizing the value of his counsel, I made the decision to reach out to him, seeking solace amidst the chaos that had engulfed my world. His surprise at the revelation about my wife mirrored my own incredulity, for she had adeptly concealed the shadows of her past beneath a veneer of respectability. My parents, who had grown to admire and cherish my wife, were taken aback by the dissonance between the woman they knew and the one revealed by the video. Yet, in their eyes, she remained a beacon of positivity, a catalyst for my personal growth. However, my father's seasoned perspective on relationships offered insights into the evolving dynamics of modern courtship, where the ubiquity of social media has reshaped the landscape of human interaction. Armed with my father's sagely advice, I resolved to navigate the treacherous waters of marital discord with grace and composure. His words echoed in my mind as I returned home, determined to confront the tumultuous storm that awaited me. As my wife's tear-stained visage met my gaze, a wave of emotions surged within me, tempered by a steely resolve to seek truth and closure. The evening unfolded with a solemn exchange, the weight of unspoken truths hanging heavy in the air. Though her tears bespoke remorse, the absence of contrition in her demeanor only served to exacerbate my disillusionment. Even as I received assurances from the acquaintance regarding the deletion of the incriminating footage, doubt continued to gnaw at the fringes of my consciousness. In the stillness of the evening, as the fading light cast shadows upon our shared sanctuary, I grappled with the shattered fragments of trust and betrayal that lay strewn before me. The balcony, once a bastion of solace and serenity, now bore witness to the unraveling of our fragile bond. As the echoes of our conversation faded into the night, I found myself adrift in a sea of uncertainty, grappling with the harrowing realization that the foundations of my reality had been irreparably shaken. During that tense period, I opted for a deliberate silence as we shared the balcony, a silent sentinel witnessing the turmoil within. With a beer in hand, I sought solace in the rhythmic cadence of my thoughts, withholding the barrage of questions that clamored for release. As she extended her apologies, weaving a narrative of repentance amidst the fabric of her past indiscretions, I listened with a stoic resolve, parsing through the layers of contrition and self-justification that colored her confession. Her words, veiled in remorse, attempted to reconcile the chasm between her past and present selves, painting a portrait of transformation and redemption. Yet, beneath the veneer of regret, lay the lingering shadow of doubt, a nagging suspicion that whispered tales of deceit and concealment. When confronted with the incongruities of her explanation, she stumbled, her carefully constructed facade crumbling under the weight of my scrutiny. The dichotomy of her actions, juxtaposed against the sanctity of our shared intimacy, elicited a maelstrom of emotions within me, a tempest of betrayal and disillusionment that threatened to engulf our fragile bond. As I probed the depths of her honesty, navigating the labyrinth of half-truths and evasions, I found myself ensnared in a web of uncertainty, grappling with the elusive specter of trust. Her offer of transparency, manifested through the relinquishing of her digital fortress, offered a glimmer of hope amidst the desolation of doubt. Yet, even as I gained access to the corridors of her virtual existence, I remained acutely aware of the limitations of such gestures, cognizant of the myriad ways in which truth can be obscured behind the facades of digital facsimiles. In the aftermath of our confrontation, I sought refuge in the solitude of the guest room, a sanctuary from the turbulent currents of emotion that surged within. The ensuing days bore witness to a precarious dance of reconciliation as I grappled with the tempest of uncertainty that raged within me. Despite my resolve to heed my father's counsel and extend a lifeline to our fractured relationship, the specter of doubt loomed large, casting a pall over our tenuous truce. As I delved deeper into the labyrinthine depths of her digital persona, I found myself ensnared in a maelstrom of paranoia and suspicion, my every waking moment consumed by the relentless pursuit of truth. Yet, amidst the chaos of my internal turmoil, a glimmer of clarity emerged, guiding me towards the realization that true reconciliation could only be forged through the crucible of honesty and transparency. Amidst the ebb and flow of our strained relationship, my wife's digital interactions served as a constant source of unease, a Pandora's box of uncertainties that threatened to unravel the fragile threads of trust that bound us together. While the majority of the messages she received emanated from distant shores, their benign nature offered little reassurance in the face of my burgeoning paranoia. A week had passed since the revelation of her transgression, and while tentative efforts at reconciliation were underway, the specter of doubt continued to cast its shadow over our tenuous truce. Despite her earnest attempts to bridge the gulf that separated us, my reluctance to relinquish the shackles of mistrust only served to deepen the chasm between us. In a candid conversation, she broached the subject of seeking professional help, citing my persistent reluctance to move past the trauma of her infidelity as a catalyst for our fractured relationship. Yet, even as she extended an olive branch in the form of marriage counseling, I found myself ensnared in a maelstrom of doubt and disillusionment, grappling with the gnawing suspicion that our union had been irreparably tainted by her indiscretion. The mere sight of familiar faces, their fleeting glances laden with unspoken judgment, served as a bitter reminder of my newfound status as the cuckolded husband, a role I had never envisioned for myself. Despite my burgeoning rage, I resisted the urge to confront them, recognizing that such actions would only serve to perpetuate the cycle of humiliation and shame that had come to define my existence. As the days stretched into weeks, the chasm between us widened, its gaping maw swallowing the vestiges of intimacy that had once defined our union. Despite our best efforts at reconciliation, the specter of doubt loomed large, its insidious tendrils weaving a tapestry of mistrust and suspicion that threatened to engulf us both. As we embarked on our first counseling session, I braced myself for the inevitable scrutiny that awaited us, steeling myself against the possibility of being cast as the villain in our unfolding drama. Yet, to my surprise, the therapist's approach was refreshingly impartial, her probing inquiries laying bare the fissures that marred the foundation of our fractured union. In the crucible of therapy, truths long buried beneath layers of deception and denial were unearthed, each revelation serving as a damning indictment of the facade of normalcy that had come to define our relationship. Yet, even as the therapist sought to guide us towards reconciliation, I remained mired in a quagmire of doubt and uncertainty, my faith in our union shattered beyond repair. Some of them on social media, but I didn't get any responses. It's frustrating not knowing who else might be aware of this video and whether it's still circulating among certain circles. It's like a dark cloud hanging over us, and I can't shake off the feeling of being constantly judged and ridiculed by those around me. As for my wife's suggestion of moving away, it feels like a drastic measure, but part of me wonders if it's necessary to escape the whispers and stares that seem to follow us everywhere. Yet, I can't help but feel conflicted about uprooting our lives and starting anew elsewhere. It's a decision that requires careful consideration and discussion, especially given the impact it would have on our daughters and our respective careers. In the midst of this turmoil, I find myself grappling with conflicting emotions: anger, betrayal, embarrassment, and a profound sense of loss. The once solid foundation of our marriage has been shaken to its core, leaving behind a fractured landscape of shattered trust and unanswered questions. I long for the sense of security and intimacy that once defined our relationship, but I'm unsure if we'll ever be able to reclaim what we've lost. Despite my reservations, I'm determined to confront this challenge head-on, to seek closure and resolution, whatever form it may take. Whether it's through counseling, open communication, or even a change of scenery, I refuse to let this betrayal define the rest of my life. In the face of adversity, I cling to the hope that we can emerge from this ordeal stronger and more resilient than ever before. And accused me of abandoning our family. I tried to explain that I needed time to sort through my feelings and figure out what I wanted, but she wouldn't listen. Emotions were running high, and it felt like we were both talking past each other, unable to truly understand the other's perspective. In the end, we both ended up feeling frustrated and misunderstood. Moving into the apartment was a strange experience. It felt liberating to have my own space again, but at the same time, it was lonely. The silence was deafening, and I found myself missing the chaos of family life, even though it had been a source of stress lately. I spent the first few nights tossing and turning, unable to sleep without the familiar sounds of my wife and kids in the house. During the day, I threw myself into work, trying to keep busy to distract myself from the turmoil inside. But no matter how hard I tried to focus, my thoughts kept drifting back to my wife and our unresolved issues. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had abandoned her when she needed me the most, but at the same time, I knew I needed this time apart to heal and regain clarity. Despite the distance between us, my wife and I continued to communicate, albeit sporadically. We exchanged text messages and occasional phone calls, but it always felt like we were tiptoeing around the elephant in the room, our crumbling marriage. It was clear that neither of us knew how to bridge the gap between us or if it was even possible anymore. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself wrestling with conflicting emotions. On one hand, I longed to return home and reconcile with my wife, to rebuild what we had lost and move forward together as a family. But on the other hand, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal and distrust that had taken root in my heart. I knew that any decision I made would have far-reaching consequences, not just for myself but for my wife and children as well. It was a heavy burden to bear, and I often found myself feeling overwhelmed by the weight of it all. But deep down, I knew that I couldn't continue living in limbo forever. I needed to find a resolution, one way or another. It was as if I had entered a surreal dimension, a realm where every word spoken reverberated with the weight of a lifetime's worth of unspoken truths. My wife's accusations cut through the air like a knife, each syllable laden with a mixture of hurt and frustration. And yet, in the midst of this emotional turmoil, I found myself strangely calm, almost detached, as if I were merely an observer in my own life, watching the drama unfold from a distance. As I stood there, facing my wife's accusations, I couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. We had been down this road before, danced this delicate dance of blame and recrimination. And yet, despite our best efforts to bridge the chasm that separated us, it seemed that we were fated to remain forever apart. And so, when my wife asked me how long we would be separated, I found myself offering up a seemingly arbitrary number: 2 months. It was a gesture born more out of desperation than any real conviction, a feeble attempt to impose some semblance of order on the chaos that had engulfed our lives. In the days that followed, I settled into a routine that bordered on the mundane. I took my kids to school, went to work, and returned home to the sterile confines of my studio apartment. And yet, despite the apparent normalcy of my daily existence, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was merely going through the motions, that beneath the veneer of routine lay a roiling sea of unresolved emotions. But amidst the chaos and confusion, there were moments of clarity, fleeting glimpses of a future that seemed tantalizingly within reach. In those moments, I allowed myself to entertain the possibility of reconciliation, to imagine a world where my wife and I could put aside our differences and come together once more. And yet, even as I entertained these thoughts, a voice in the back of my mind whispered words of caution, reminding me of the countless times we had tried and failed to mend the rift that separated us. And so, I found myself torn between hope and despair, unsure of which path to follow. As the days turned into weeks, I began to find solace in the simple pleasures of everyday life, the laughter of my children, the warmth of a home-cooked meal. And yet, beneath the surface, a storm was brewing, a tempest of doubt and uncertainty that threatened to engulf me at any moment. And so, as I contemplated the weeks and months that lay ahead, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held in store for me. Would I find the strength to confront the demons that haunted me, to overcome the obstacles that stood in my way? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: I would face whatever lay ahead with courage and determination, ready to embrace whatever fate had in store for me. The anticipation for the upcoming hunting trip infused a sense of excitement into my otherwise mundane routine. Even though the trip was still a month away, I had already secured my ticket, eagerly anticipating the adventure that awaited us as we traveled in my buddies. It was a beacon of light, a respite from the challenges that had engulfed my life in recent months. As the days passed, my routine remained largely unchanged, a monotonous procession of work and solitude. Yet, amidst the familiar rhythm of daily life, there was an undercurrent of anticipation, a sense that something new and exciting was on the horizon. However, amidst the routine, a call from my wife disrupted the tranquility of my existence. She informed me of a problem with the dishwasher, requesting my assistance in fixing it. Upon arriving at the house, I was greeted with a surprising sight. The living room had undergone a transformation, with new curtains adorning the windows and a plush new couch taking center stage. Curiosity piqued, I inquired about the changes, prompting my wife to explain her desire for a fresh start. As I set about repairing the dishwasher, I couldn't help but notice further alterations to the house, from the master bedroom to the wardrobe. Evidence of my wife's newfound dedication to self-improvement was everywhere. While I couldn't help but feel a twinge of envy at her commitment to personal growth, I couldn't shake the lingering doubts that plagued my mind. Was this truly a sign of moving on, or merely a facade to mask the underlying turmoil? As the weeks passed and the weather grew colder, another issue arose, this time with the furnace. Once again, I found myself at the house, greeted by more changes and a wife who seemed increasingly distant. Despite my efforts to reconnect, I couldn't shake the feeling that she had moved on, that I was merely a passing figure in her life, no longer essential to her happiness. The upcoming hunting trip served as a stark reminder of the divide that separated us, a divide that seemed to widen with each passing day. And so, as I embarked on the hunting trip with my friends, I couldn't help but wonder what awaited me upon my return. Would I find a wife who had moved on, or one who was willing to work towards reconciliation? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain, the journey ahead would be fraught with uncertainty, a test of courage and resilience in the face of adversity. The scenario unfolded with an eerie calmness as I maneuvered the car into the driveway, the familiar routine of dropping off my daughters momentarily interrupted by an unexpected inquiry from my 5-year-old. Her innocent question about a potential new daddy sent a jolt of unease coursing through me, sparking a cascade of apprehension and curiosity. I sought to assuage her concerns, masking my own bewilderment as I probed for the source of her inquiry. Her response, uttered with the unfiltered candor of childhood, left me reeling. She spoke of a mysterious presence named Jacob, a figure unfamiliar to my ears yet laden with ominous implications. Wrestling with conflicting emotions, I grappled with the possibility of infidelity lurking beneath the veneer of domesticity, my mind racing to piece together fragments of a puzzle obscured by shadows. As the specter of Jacob loomed large in my thoughts, I found myself ensnared in a web of conjecture and doubt, haunted by the unsettling prospect of betrayal lurking within the confines of my own home. Faced with the daunting task of confronting my wife's potential indiscretions, I resolved to delve deeper into the enigma shrouding Jacob's identity, determined to unearth the truth lurking beneath layers of deceit. In a bid to unravel the mystery, I embarked on a clandestine mission, seizing upon the cover of darkness to confront my wife in the intimate confines of our shared abode. The air crackled with tension as I breached the threshold of our once happy home, steeling myself for the confrontation that awaited. Seated in the dimly lit expanse of our living room, the weight of unspoken truths hung heavy in the air as I broached the subject with a mixture of trepidation and resolve. With each probing question, I peeled back the layers of deception, exposing the raw, unvarnished reality lurking beneath the surface. In that pivotal moment, amidst tear-stained confessions and shattered illusions, I grappled with the harsh realities of betrayal and heartache, confronting the painful truth with unwavering resolve. Though the road ahead may be fraught with uncertainty and turmoil, I am resolved to reclaim my agency, forging ahead with newfound clarity and resilience. In the midst of our confrontation, my wife's explanations unraveled like a poorly spun yarn, each thread of her narrative stretching thin under the weight of scrutiny. With a furrowed brow and a voice laced with urgency, I pressed her to unveil the truth lurking beneath the surface of her deceit. As her gaze faltered and her composure wavered, I sensed the fragile facade of her deception beginning to crumble, revealing glimpses of the tangled web of infidelity she had woven. No longer content to be placated by half-truths and evasions, I demanded clarity, my words ringing out with a steely resolve. With each revelation, the veil of illusion that had shrouded our relationship was torn asunder, laying bare the stark reality of her betrayal. Yet, even as the pieces of her deception fell into place, I found myself grappling with a sense of disbelief, struggling to reconcile the image of the woman I once knew with the architect of such duplicity. In the stark silence that followed her confession, a swell of conflicting emotions threatened to engulf me: anger, disbelief, and a profound sense of loss vied for dominance within my troubled heart. Yet, amidst the tumult, a steely resolve began to take root, fueling my determination to confront the painful truths that lay before me. As the weight of her admission settled upon my shoulders, I found solace in the knowledge that my instincts had not led me astray. Though the road ahead may be fraught with uncertainty and heartache, I am resolved to navigate it with courage and clarity, guided by the unwavering conviction that truth, no matter how painful, is the foundation upon which true healing must be built. As I departed from our tense confrontation, a whirlwind of emotions churned within me, a tempest of anger, betrayal, and resignation swirling beneath the surface of my stoic facade. Despite her earnest declaration of love, I remained unmoved, my heart heavy with the weight of disillusionment and disappointment. Returning to the solitude of my home, I grappled with the bitter reality of our shattered marriage, the fractured remnants of trust and intimacy strewn across the landscape of our shared history. Yet, amidst the wreckage, a glimmer of solace flickered, a quiet reassurance that, in unveiling her deception, I had liberated myself from the suffocating grip of her lies. It was a surreal sensation, this strange interplay of grief and relief, as though the universe itself had conspired to illuminate the truth that had long lain hidden beneath the veneer of our domestic facade. In the stillness of the night, I found myself enveloped in a sense of serenity, a profound certainty that, despite the pain of my discovery, I had emerged stronger, wiser, and infinitely more resilient. As I recounted the events of the day to my father, his words of comfort and wisdom served as a balm to my wounded spirit, a reminder that, though the road ahead may be fraught with uncertainty, I need not traverse it alone. With his steadfast support, I resolved to confront the challenges that lay before me with courage and determination, guided by the unwavering belief that every trial is but a stepping stone on the path to redemption. Yet, even as I grappled with the aftermath of our confrontation, my thoughts turned inexorably to the safety and well-being of my daughters, their innocence and vulnerability a stark reminder of the stakes at hand. Determined to shield them from harm, I resolved to uncover the truth behind the man my wife had introduced into their lives, his intentions and character a source of grave concern in light of recent revelations. In the days that followed, as my wife and I engaged in fraught negotiations and bitter recriminations, I remained steadfast in my resolve to prioritize the welfare of our daughters above all else. Though her attempts at reconciliation rang hollow in the wake of her betrayal, I refused to succumb to bitterness or rancor, choosing instead to focus my energies on building a brighter future for my children, free from the shadow of deceit and betrayal. And so, as I embarked on the arduous journey toward healing and redemption, I found solace in the knowledge that, though the path ahead may be fraught with peril, I need not walk it alone. With the love and support of those who mattered most, I knew that I would emerge from the crucible of adversity stronger, wiser, and infinitely more resilient than before. In a bid to unravel the tangled web of deceit that ensnared my marriage, I embarked on a quest for truth, a relentless pursuit of answers that would lay bare the extent of my wife's betrayal. Armed with a name and a suspicion, I sought to confront the shadows that lurked within the depths of her deception. Utilizing a cunning stratagem, I reached out to my wife's coworker under the guise of a simple inquiry, a seemingly innocuous query veiled in the guise of casual conversation. With practiced finesse, I artfully wove a web of deceit, masking my true intentions behind a facade of geniality and camaraderie. Yet, as the words tumbled forth from her lips, a gnawing sense of unease crept over me, a silent acknowledgement of the treacherous terrain upon which I now trod. For in her denial lay the seeds of suspicion, the faintest whisper of deceit lingering in the air like a shadow cast upon the surface of a moonlit pond. Undeterred by her protestations, I resolved to confront my wife head-on, to unmask the truth that lay concealed beneath the veneer of her deception. With a steely resolve, I dialed her number, each ring echoing like a tolling bell heralding the reckoning that awaited us. As her voice filled the airwaves, a palpable tension hung between us, a silent harbinger of the storm that loomed on the horizon. With measured words, I laid bare the falsehoods that had poisoned our marriage, each syllable a dagger aimed at the heart of her deceit. And yet, in the face of my accusations, she remained defiant, her protests ringing hollow against the weight of my certainty. With a heavy heart, I listened as she spun her web of half-truths and evasions, each word a testament to the depths of her deception. In the aftermath of our confrontation, I found myself consumed by a maelstrom of conflicting emotions, a tempest of anger, betrayal, and resignation swirling within the recesses of my soul. Yet, amidst the chaos, a flicker of clarity emerged, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness that threatened to engulf me. With a heavy heart and a weary soul, I embarked on the next chapter of my life, a solitary journey through the barren wasteland of divorce and disillusionment. Yet, as I gazed upon the horizon, I found solace in the knowledge that, though the road ahead may be fraught with uncertainty, I need not walk it alone.